Kakadosh Boker Or. Daf Yomi Masechet Sanhedrin Daf Zayin Mud Aleph 77a1. Says the Gemara we were talking about right now, right? Mitzamtzem. You remember the concept of mitzamtzem is that a person comes and is going to be mitzamtzem, that he could actually come and kill. So he said mitzamtzem in Ezekiel, he said Asaba and Din Shogek Mizim Honest Beratzon. So he says Enodin Shechiyev Bainam Mitzamtzem, right? That also that they're going to come and they're going to damage. So he should be chayav to pay. So Ravacha Barav Poter. What does that mean, Ravacha Barav Poter? Why? Because he says that it's like a grama. You remember we spoke about yesterday that obviously if somebody pushes somebody into a pit or pushes him into the water or pushes him into the fire, so therefore obviously there he's going to be chayav because he pushed him in. But what about mitzamtzem, which means what about is that he caused it? So what does that mean? For example, he went and he took the animal and he put it in the sun. And he purposely left him in the sun there until the animal dehydrated and died. So therefore, in such a case, right, we said Ravina says he's going to be chayav, and Rav Acha bar Papa said Rav says he's going to be patur. So there was talking about mitzamtzem. So Rav Acha bar Rav says patur. Amar Mishar Shiamaita. What's the reasoning of Avavua Daba da Poter? Because it says in the pasuk, Mot yumata maker rotzeachu, berotzeachu d'chayev la mitzamtzem benezekin uchebe. Only if by death are you chayav and mitzamtzem. But by damages, you're not chayav and mitzamtzem. Meaning, if a person comes and now causes death, by there we take into consideration mitzamtzem, shehu ayag mamash zeya hu gorem. So if he comes and he puts a person out in the sun, and he purposely leaves him there, it's mamash desert heat, and there's no, or in a car, and there's no water, no nada, and he causes him to die, that's called mitzamtzem is chayav. But what happens if he only caused them damage? In such a case, he's going to be patur. Okay, in such a case, he's going to be patur. So he says, Amar Rava says, Kifato, umet bara'av, also he's going to be patur. What happens if he ties him up? He ties him up, and he dies because of hunger. He's also going to be patur, also. The Amar Rava says, Kifato b'chama umet, right? Or he says over here, right? Betzina v'met, chayav. If he ties him up, and what happens is that the person dies because of heat or because of cold, he's going to be chayav. But sof chama lavo, sof tzima. But right now, what happens if it's not cold or it's not hot, and only later on it's going to become hot? So then he's going to be patur, because then again it was going to be like a cause. So it means if he tied him up and it was still in the middle of the night, so it wasn't that hot, and all of a sudden comes the day and it starts a sun, terrible sun, but he's tied up, he can't do anything, and then he dies, he's going to be patur. The same way the other way around. He tied him up during the nighttime, and it's still not freezing cold. And all of a sudden, it comes the nighttime, and he's freezing. He freezes to death. He's going to be patur. Why? Because at the time when he tied him up, he wasn't there. If he ties him up and puts him in front of a lion, he's going to be patur. Yeah, because anyway, he would have died anyway, even if he was tied up or not tied up. The second he's in front of the lion, right? Bon appetit. The lion enjoys himself, right? But he says, but in front of the Yitushim, he's going to be chayav mita. Why? Because there he could have gotten out of it, right? That means if it wasn't tied up, he would have stopped the Yitushim from coming and biting him and killing him, right? So Ravashi Amar, no, even in front of the Yitushim is going to be patur. Hani yazli v'ani but it's not the same Yitushim. These ones go and other ones come. So since it's not the same one, he's not the real cause of the death. Okay? Itmar, it was stated. Kafa lav gigit. What happens right now if he comes and he puts a gigit, and the other one dies because of like chenek? Yeah, upara alav ma'aziva. Or he made a hole, right, on the gag, and what happened was that all of a sudden it started becoming very, very cold in the house because he made a hole in the roof. So Rava v'Ravzera chadamar chayav, chadamar patur. One of them says chayav, one of them says patur. Tistayem de Rava udamar patur. We're going to say that Rava was one that says patur. Tamar Rava, but Rava says kifato umet barav. If you tie him up and he's going to die, he's going to be patur. So the same thing, basically anything which is going to be like a grama. So same thing, you went and you put a barrel on top of a guy's head. So now the guy wasn't able to breathe anymore. There was no oxygen anymore, right? Lo yachamtzan, because the barrel. So the guy died. He's going to be patur because that is the halacha of Rava. So says the Gemara Ad Rava, the opposite. He's saying that Rabbi Zera who damar patur. Why? Tamar Bezera says Rabbi Zera Hayman da'ale lechavre bebeita deshisha. Somebody who puts his friend in a house of shaish which is closed. And he turns on a candle. Why do you turn on a candle? No, because when you turn to take the oxygen, if the house is completely sealed with shisha, with shaish, which is like marble, and now you come and you turn on a candle, it's going to take away all the oxygen. So what happens? And then the guy dies because there's no oxygen. So tamada likle shraga, the reason is because he turned on the candle. But if he didn't turn on the candle, right, he wouldn't be chayav. So it comes out from here the exact same thing. When he came and he put on this gigit on top, but he didn't like the candle, so therefore it was only because of the hevel of from himself. So therefore you should be patur according to this. So Amri Hatam, they went and they said over there, Belash Raga Lamatchil Hevla. He says without the candle, it doesn't start all this heaven. Meaning, right, Beshate Hacha, right? He says Beshate immediately when he put it on. Hacha here below Shraga, but here when you put the gigit on, since it's so small, even without the candle, you already have it. Meaning in the big place, it's going to be a different halacha, right? But in the small place, there you do need the how do you call it, the candle. You understand? Meaning when it's a small place, even without the candle, there wouldn't have been enough oxygen. So it's already a problem. In the big place, you needed the candle to take away the oxygen, right, in order to come and to do something. Okay, so we're in Ayin Zayin Amud Bet, the two dots. Okay, 77b, two dots. There's a siman over there to do a sulam tris samnim bekotel. Amar Rava. Rava says, "Dechafol lebor." Imagine you throw somebody, you push somebody into a pit. V'sulam babor. Now there's a ladder there. Uba acher v'siluko. Somebody else takes away the ladder. That means when you threw him in, there was a ladder. He could have climbed up. But now somebody took the ladder. But it was somebody else. The loyata. Somebody else. So he says, Vafilu hu kadam v'silko. Or even if he came and he took away the ladder beforehand, he's going to be patur. Teve'idna de shadia. Why? Because the fact that at the time when he threw him into the pit, yachol la'alotu, he could have gotten out. You remember we learned yesterday that as long as the guy could come out of the problem, if he doesn't come out, you're going to be patur. Even though you caused him that. Meaning you threw him into the river, but he could swim out. Now he just didn't. You put him into the fire, but he could have come out, and he didn't. So in such a case, you're going to be patur. So he says, Ve'amar Rava, Rava says, Zarak chetz utris biado. Imagine you shoot an arrow. At the time that you shot an arrow, he had a magen, he had a shield. Somebody else takes away his shield. Or even if the guy himself took it away, right? The shield, he's going to be patur. Why? Because at the time that he shot the arrow, that's it. When he shot the arrow, he ran, he took away the shield. At the time when he shot it, there was a shield, and therefore he was going to be protected. The third halacha, ve'amarava, zarak bo chetz v'samanim biyado. What happens if he had the refuah to save him from the chetz? So that means he shot it, it would have hit him, but he knows that he has the refuah in order to get out of it. Somebody came and he got rid of it. Or he did it himself, he's going to be patur. Because he could have gotten healed in such a case. So Amar Ravashi says, Hilkach, therefore, afilu samanim b'shuk, even if it's going to be during the time of the shuk, and he says, and then all of a sudden now when he wants to find it, he can't find it, he's going to be patur. So Amar Ravacha bered Rava Ravashi nizdamnu lo samanim mahu. What's halacha now if he does have the simanim afterwards only? So Tomeret, Keshehu Yara, when he went and he shot, there was no simanim, lo trufa. But now there's simanim. What's halacha now? Do we say that since at the time when he shot it, he would have killed him and therefore he's going to be chayav? And therefore if the simanim doesn't work or whatever, he doesn't have them on time, he's going to be chayav? Or do we say that he's going to be patur? So Elmaleh, he says, Zakai. He says, if he would have come during the betin, he would have been chayav. He would have been zakai. Why? He says because at the end of the day, he could have bought it and saved his life. So the fact that he didn't buy it and save his life, now the guy's going to be patur. Okay? Ve'amar Rava. Now Rava comes and he says, Zarak tzror bakotel v'chazra la'achora ve'arga. Imagine you threw a stone to the wall and it ricocheted. It went backwards and it killed somebody. You're going to be chayav. So he says, so it comes out that people that they come and they start playing with these balls and all these things, right? So if they threw it with all their strength against the wall, and then it came back and it killed somebody. So they're going to be chayav. If they did it b'mezid, they're going to be killed. And if they did it b'shogeg, they go to galut. So says the Gemara, b'shogeg golim pshita, obviously. If they killed b'shogeg, are miklat. Obviously, pshita. So he says, b'mezid neragin itzichaleh. The chidush is that if they do it b'mezid, they're going to be killed. That is the chidush. I would have thought to say hatrat safeki, that it's considered hatrat safek. Miyemar dehadra, who said that bichlal that it's going to come back and kill? Kabashmalan comes to teach you that it's not considered hatrat safek because the majority of times when you throw a ball against the wall, it's going to come back at you. Meaning harbe pe'amim, it ricochets, right? So you throw it there, it's going to come back. Right? It's like a boomerang, right? You throw it, it's going to come back. So therefore, you already know that it's going to. A person cannot say, lo yadati sheze yachzor. You know very, very well. You're going to throw a ball against the wall, it's going to come back at you. So you have to be very, very careful with it. Okay? Tani Rav Tachlifa, Bar Marava Kamed Rabbi Yavu. So taught Rav Tachlifa Bar Marava in front of Rabbi Yavu. כגון אלו המשחקים בכדור שהרגו תוך 400 פטור, חוץ 400 חייב. If right now this person is playing with the kadur and they killed, so if it's within the daled amot of the kadur, he's going to be patur from galut. If he's going to be outside of the daled amot, he's going to be chayav galut. That's what Rashi says. He says we're talking about somebody that kills bishogeg. So it says within the daled amot he's going to be patur from galut. Only outside the daled amot he's going to say. So says the Gemara, Amal Ravin Ravashi. What's the case? Hey chudami. He says tekanichale. If it's going to be that he threw the kadur and he wanted it to do this. So if you put, so what do I care now? The distance. Ata kadur keneged akir, right? You threw it against the wall. It's going to bounce back and it's going to kill somebody, right? Now, what do I care about the distance? If you knew that this was going to happen, what do I care now about the distance? If it's within 4 amot, outside of 4 amot, what does that make a difference? If you didn't want that, so even if it's going to be much more than 4 amot, why in the world are you going to go to be chayav galut? What's going on? So Elmaleh, he says, "Stam mischakim bekadur kama da'el tfei menach nichale." He says, when you're going to throw it, right? He says, as the closer that you are to the wall, the better that it is. Why? Because you want that it should hit the wall with a lot of strength, and therefore it's going to fly. Meaning, according to your distance, how much are you going to throw it, and how much can it ricochet back? So Lamemar, are you going to tell me that's kocho, that's his strength? Or meaning we have a contradiction. I'm kadesh. Imagine right now, somebody comes and he wants to put the efer paraduma into the memayan in order to make the mechatat. Remember, the waters of the chatat, of the paraduma, you have to take the ashes of the paraduma, and you're going to put it into the memayan, and that's how you're going to be mekadesh to the mechatat. Now, what happened was, it fell on the side, right? It fell on his hand, or on the side of the shoket, or on the side of the trough, right, where the water is. And then afterwards, it went into the water. It's going to be pasul. Why? Because the efer has to be directly put inside the water by the human being. It cannot be by like on the side. So now the question is, here it's mashma, that if it's coming like a rika, if it's not coming directly, it's not really yours. So answers the Gemara, we're talking about that it started dripping. Right? And therefore, since it dripped onto it and it didn't go directly, meaning you are the person that's putting the ashes inside, you have to put it directly inside. If it's going to be here and then trickling in, that's not considered the ashes of the paraduma. So Tashema, we're going to try to bring another proof now. Machat shaya netuna lacheres. When you have a machat, which is tamemet, machat is a needle that is tamemet, that's on top of a kli cheres, on top of earthenware. And now you sprinkle the mechatat on it to purify it. Safek al-machat hiza or safek al-cheres hiza mitza alea. Azato pasul. You sprinkle, and let's say the machat is right here. So you have the needle right here. I sprinkled it. I have a doubt. Did it get on the needle, or did it get onto the cheres and then it went to the needle? I've got a doubt. It's pasul. Why? Because it has to go directly. When I'm sprinkling, it has to go directly onto the product, onto the item. So Amar of Chinana Bar Yudah Mishmei Rav Matzah Itmar. There it's mitzah. Mitzah is that it was hitiz, like he sprinkled it. So he says, according to the Pirush of Mishnah, if there's a safek, where did it go? So obviously it's going to be pasul. Why? Because it could be that it didn't actually even get to the machat, even derechat hazah. Meaning, even if I got to the kli cheres, maybe it never actually got to the bichlal, to the needle. Maybe it never got to the machat at all. So Amar of Papa says, Haman de kafte lechavre. Somebody's going to come and tie up his friend. Ve'ashki lele bidka demaya. And then he put a huge zedem on top of him, and then he died. So imagine he ties him up, and then he opens up like a dam or whatever you want to call it. And all of a sudden, boom, the water just comes onto him and kills him. He's going to be chayav. Why? That's his arrows. So he says umechayev, and he's going to be chayav. Hanemile, when is that? Only b'koach rishon. But koach sheni, Grama be'alma. But if it's going to be koach sheni, it's going to be grama. Meaning, what happens if he opened up the other dam, and then that caused the domino effect? So that's a grama. Grama is an indirect cause that is going to be patur. But if it was direct, right? He puts him in front, and all of a sudden, boom, he puts him into a swimming pool tied up, and now he turns on the water. So now he's going to be chayav. That's called grama. That's not called grama. That's called direct. That is gire dide. That is his. How do you call it? His things. Papa he's going to be chayav. So Rashi, what's the reasoning? It's going to be his koach. So if it's going to be his koach, so it should go even higher up, right? Because he threw it up. So he says, "We love kekocho," and if it's not going to be kocho, so tezil tachat, it should go down. So he says, "Ela koach kachushu." It was the koach of like he says it's like gravity. So therefore, even the hariga is his koach, right? That in order to be mechayev oto mita, okay.